From what you say, I feel comedy can be somebody's life jacket.
Yeah.
And we got to respect it that way. And if and I love what you said. People developing brittle ears. I think they probably don't have the strength of character to be able to stomach something that is true or something that they think they have no control over. I think that just opened such a different side to a comedian where you look at a comedian and you think he's just a comedian, but he's an artist. He's a living story. He's a survivor. He's an observer. He's a literary, champion. He's a word leader, and writers change the world. Welcome to Will Talks, ladies and gentlemen. We have with us today Anthony Paulson. Anthony Paulson has been a wonderful human being. He's from Versailles. He's done several jobs and he knows a lot of different languages. Today's podcast is going to discover so many facets about his personality. We're going to look at him as a student of our schooling system and how they have been able to evolve and develop and really become successful in their own walks of life. Anthony, tell me something. How many languages do you know?
Regional, I know Konkani, Malayalam, Marathi, Gujarati, Hindi, to आना ही है. Apart from that, I know German and a bit of Spanish, basically.
Wu Heisen C. Is that German?
Yeah, that's German.
That's German. That's
Yeah.
amazing. How did you pick up all these languages? Languages tell us stories.
I travel quite a bit. So I always wanted to travel. So I picked up jobs that allowed me to travel. So I've been to US, where I've been to Seattle, basically the East Coast, the West Coast. I've been to Alaska, British Columbia, Canada. Then from there I flew to Miami. Then I went to Puerto Rico, where I met a lot of people from Colombia who I was working with. They used to speak a lot about, like when they talk, right? Like agua, they will say like this water. When we go to parties, they will say uno cerveza por favor, means beer. And I had to learn that because I did want to have a drink of beer. So I picked that up. So I don't know. It's just when you spend time with people, you pick up stuff that way. So and then I went to Europe. I was in Germany.
Mhm.
There it is like proper. If you're in Maharashtra, you need to know Marathi. Same goes with Germans.
Oh.
If you're in Germany, you need to speak Deutsch
Mm.
because not all of them can speak
Mhm.
English.
So how did you pick up all these languages? Like, was it really difficult for you to learn these?
Initially, yes, but I think if you are exposed to it for a longer time, you kind of get. And I love to talk to people, explore new cultures, food. As I traveled, I met a lot of them, a lot of different people from different cultures. It was amazing to know. A lot of them helped me to learn as well.
So when you say you traveled a lot and you meet all these different people from different cultures, have you noticed any big change between or big differences between the cultures in all these places? Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Major changes. It's funny, but we live in a bubble. To be honest, when you travel, you get a lot of perspective. And yes, there's a lot of different differences when it comes to where I'm from or where we are from. Because if you see in Mumbai itself, the culture is different from where Kerala is, right? So imagine if you go outside the country, what it'll be like. And it's major differences when it comes to not just food, clothing way, and talks to human reaction, how they teach their kids, what you can see in parenthood there, and what you can see as an adult, how they process information, what they know and what we don't know. The human interactions, the social skills are quite different. Uh, some things that they do there, we might consider ki kya ho raha hai? Like, it takes that break. So, but at the core of it, I understand that value systems are quite different.
Mhm. So when you say different, you kind of you're actually saying that it exists. There's so many people in India with limited exposure to the West feel that only we as Indians have values, and the West seems to be more consumeristic. and
Nope.
that they have no values and they don't teach
No,
any
no,
values to
no,
their
no, no,
children.
no. no.
Anything that you saw or you observed, what do you think they teach
I
their kids that we should also start teaching our kids?
Okay, I tell you the incident. So I was into sales and promotions. I was working for Royal Caribbean there. So I was into sales and promotions. So I used to talk to guests and get them to certain
So people may
games.
not know what the Royal Caribbean is. Would you just want to unpack
So
that a
Royal
little bit?
Caribbean is basically a shipping industry where you most of the Indians work. A lot of Indians are there. They work as waiters, chefs. They work in shops. There are a lot of things. So I used to work in the shops as sales and promotions. You have big shops inside the ships. It's like duty free. So you're supposed to talk to people, get engaged with them, and get them to the shop so that footfalls are higher, sales are higher that way. So basically, it was a name outcome. So number was the game of numbers basically. I for sure got an opportunity to speak to a lot of people from a lot of cultures. Basically, people from US, from different states. Uh, there were people coming from different countries as well. Elderly couples. Most of them used to come with their kids, and it was this happened once. Was you get this card on the ship? Basically, it's your card. You put money in that card, and wherever you swipe, you can buy stuff in the ship. That card is used in the ship. This girl was maybe 8 or 9 years old. She had this card. She took a friend around and she started swiping things and buying stuff. In the evening, her mom approached me saying that she bought all of this stuff from your shop. I said, okay. She was not supposed to buy all of these things. I said, okay, we want to return it back. I said, fair enough. I understand the child did not understand the value of money. I get that. But the way both her mom and her dad was present had approached her in a way straightforward उसको बोला कि listen, you were given $100 and you're supposed to spend it in a certain way. You're supposed to take a bill and show it to us, whatever you buy. So the preference of how to spend money was inculcated in that child. Like वो लोग बहुत they give a lot of importance to that. How to spend your money. What is more necessary? What is a need or a want? Was thought in front of me. And it was quite intriguing. I'm like, ये सब मेरे को नहीं सिखाया था जब मैं 8 साल का था. I have not seen this kind of.
This is a great story because what you saw there was how a parent was correcting or a parent was teaching, laying the foundations and setting the boundaries. And that is what discipline is.
Yeah, but for money, like what's the worth of money? What is value of money? How to spend it? What is a need and a want? 8 साल का बच्चे को कौन पता चलता क्या need है क्या want है? And it was interesting. And I asked him like, are you sure? I think you're being a little bit hard on. Like she doesn't understand the concept of money.
That's a very interesting thing you said. The fact that you, as an Indian, being in a multicultural society abroad, you talking to a Western parent and saying, I feel you're being a little hard on your children. And I have heard that with my cousins in the UK. My cousins have told me that the way British parents are with their children, they often feel that the British parenting is really hard and they really enforce a lot of discipline and boundary. Have you heard or seen anything like that?
I think it is mostly our own PTSDs because we used to get pastings. I said that because I get a feeling कि once this kid goes back to the room, उसको मिलने वाला है. So I wanted to.
But they don't hit their kids. And
No, but we have that general feeling, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we don't want to see an 80-year-old kid being corrected in front of like another adult person she doesn't know. I felt a little bad about, so I told her about it.
this is brilliant because what you're now saying is almost from a cultural perspective,
Yeah.
from where you and I come from, we don't feel like correcting children because children are children and they will behave like children and they'll make errors and mistakes.
No, I think
But in the West, I don't think they keep it that way. They
No, they have-
ensure.
they have this culture. They teach kids from a young age about like for example, just an example. You have children, right? Like if they are going to shop, bill लेके आने बोलेंगे कभी?
नहीं,
वो लोग bill लेके आने बोलता है. Like at least I met a parent.
bill and change.
Yeah, bill and change. It has to be precise.
Do you think that those methods help children then develop a more professional work ethic? Have you worked with people of other countries and have you seen or observed
Yeah.
different work ethics?
Yeah, I have. I don't. I mean, I work with Germans. They are very precise. I mean, oh my God, they, even if you sit to study, they sit like they sit straight 8 9 hours as they're working. And as far as I've done my masters, कल एग्जाम है तो I'll sit like आज रात को 3 बजे to study. They do with extreme professionalism, like whatever they do. Um, I've worked with people in US. They are I met two kinds of people in US. One, they have their head over their shoulder. मतलब उनको पता है क्या करना है. Like they have good knowledge. They are very intelligent. And then I have met a couple of people who उनको कुछ पता ही नहीं है. So I don't know how
So you
that
see the
works.
extremes.
Extremes. You don't have street smart. I had one guy walk up to me in US saying, ki, how long you been in US? I said like about like 2 months. And he's like, you picked up English really fast. So, so मुझे पता नहीं था he's yanking my chains or I don't know क्या हो रहा है. So मैं सोचा चल just go with the flow. I'm like, yeah, I pick up languages really fast. I'm like, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you know about India? He's like, I know that you guys speak Hindu. I'm like, no, that's Hindi. But I met people in US who are like extremely smart. They're entrepreneurs. Most of them are entrepreneurs that I met. I was lucky enough to meet like good people. Lucky enough to meet good people. So that way. So I see a vast difference in culture. They follow rules and regulations because they know that in some ways that it helps.
Brilliant insight. The fact that you said that they follow rules and regulations. There is a cruise ship story that a friend of mine told me. He's in Vasai, and he told me that when he was on a cruise, and this was about 20 years ago or 25 years ago, something like that. When he was on the cruise, he was a guest manager, and he was handling the banquets. Um, and in the afternoon, the banquets turned to be the restaurant. And there was an Indian guy,
Okay.
who came to the restaurant. And this Indian guy was asked to wait till his turn comes to get seated.
Yeah.
And the Indian guy, in front of everybody, started yelling and shouting at my friend and said, do you know where I come from? Do you know who I am? And you're keeping me waiting. And my friend said, sir, you look like you're from the same country that I am from. And right now, you're embarrassing our nation.
Yeah.
And the minute that happened, this person waited. And in the evening, during the banquet dinner, this rich man was with his entire family and multiple people. And he called for the waiter. He called for my friend. And then he looked at my friend and he looked at all his guests and he said, this boy has taught me a lesson today. And I'm proud that he's from my own nation. And this man is currently India's richest man. This is his story. India's richest man.
You know what, Adani?
I mean,
I'm like, wow.
in and around there, but not Adani.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the power that a lot of people think in India. People think wealth makes me more powerful than the law. The fact that you said that kids and adults respect the law, I think is very, very inspiring.
I'll tell you a small and simple story. Okay. So I was in Europe. I was in Germany. Basically, I started driving in Germany. It was a little hard because right hand driving here, left hand driving there. So a friend of mine was traveling and she saw this line. So there's this line that you're not supposed to cross, not supposed to cross at all. And this line is like you have to imagine, as you said, like, it's a concrete wall. You cannot cross on that side. मैं मिरर में देखा लेन खाली था तो मैंने ले लिया. मैं चल दिया legit. She shouted. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you saw that line there. You have this line back in India. And I know for sure you know about this line. Why would you cross it? For the name of God, man. You cannot do this.
Yeah.
I said, in India we have this line, but
Just suggestion.
I mean, whether it's a line, whether it's a minority free thinking, we will run over you. I don't like we'll take the car. And there is a roundabout. Okay. We have roundabouts in Vasai. Roundabouts have rules around it of how you can exit.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know that. Okay. A friend of mine, इधर ही अपना नाके पे there's a roundabout.
There are so many roundabouts. Yeah.
He told me, "क्या monument क्या बना रहा है?" मैंने वो monument नहीं है, roundabout है. उसके आजू बाजू rules होता है. Like if you're entering the roundabout, you have to signal first where you have to get out, the first exit which you want to get out. Otherwise, you can just keep on going circles. Roundabout was basically introduced because उससे traffic कम होता है.
To create signal free
Signal free
interchanges.
interchange. यहाँ पे roundabouts के बारे में पता नहीं है. पता है लेकिन लोगों को जानना नहीं है. We are always we need it first types for us. I seen this is my experience. As you said, your friend faced that particular. I have faced it multiple times in US. I have faced it multiple times in unfortunately in Europe. Um, I have faced it when I was traveling to UK. When I was in UK, uh, for us, the society, as far as I have studied, I'd love to study psychology. We are a structural based society where we think uh, it comes with a caste culture, and that is followed down to work. Like you have certain caste culture in work. Like अगर आप electrician या plumber हो तो you're in a blue collar job. बोलते हैं यहाँ पर.
Mm.
Okay, if you're working in an office, you're a white collar job. As far if you see that change in US or UK, plumbers, electricians have high paid jobs. They respect those because it's actually a very well to do profession to be in. They have like master's degree courses for plumber. यहाँ पे सब look down करते हैं, which I find has to change.
I think that again is a brilliant point because there's this whole idea of power distance
Yeah.
in India where we feel that, and not just India, it's common in Southeast Asian countries, and it becomes stronger and stronger as you go towards Japan. And the idea of power distance is that there's a story of one of it's a tragic story because there was a plane crash that happened in I think in Korea, and the plane crash happened because the captain who has some 15 years of flying experience, and there was a first officer who had 3 years of flying experience. The captain made an error, and the first officer saw that error, knew that it is an error, but did not dare to open his mouth and correct or interject or suggest to the captain because the captain is the captain. And there is this idea of power distance where we feel that the boss is always right. And there are stupid rules and boards that you see all over workplaces, in and around where we come from, where they say two rules. Rule number one, the boss is always right. Rule number two, follow rule number one.
ये अपना schooling system में भी है.
Even
Like,
in
in
schools.
schooling system, you're not supposed to ask questions. That is what is encouraged in us. But as far as like I done my schooling and like you cannot ask a question. You have to follow.
Hmm.
You can see that rules here. This flight incident happened here in Mumbai, in India, Mangalore crash. The flight that crashed in Mangalore. I was that time working for Jet Airways. I was a senior crew there. I think the captain was a senior guy, and the second pilot was a Jet Airways guy, captain who shifted to Air India. And he suggested Mangalore is one of the trickiest airport to land in. He suggested that we might overshoot the runway, and same thing happened. The power hierarchy happened. He didn't listen, and that's how the flight went off the runway. And
The amount of people who probably died, and it's just very, very disheartening. I think so much of
So-
all this can be taken care of in school. Do you think if your school had given you a different experience or taught you different things, that you would be able to better integrate and enjoy and be part of a global citizen?
I completely agree on that. I've been to a school in Marienheide. It's in Germany. It's a small village. There they are encouraged to be more creative than being bookish. They put a lot of emphasis on creative works and practical theory on how it helps. यहाँ पे Pythagoras theorem सीखा है, लेकिन I don't know how to apply that in my real life. There they give you real life situations and they deal with the real issues. I think schooling system, if they change certain things, yes, it would affect in a lot of ways.
What do you think should schools start or stop? So you can think of start, stop, and do more of. So what do you think as a school?
In depth, if you go to it, it's a vast topic to go. But
Mhm.
for us, like you have been running a school, right? And I think you're trying certain new things with your students because
We want our children to be global citizens. We want our children to be able to work anywhere in the world and succeed. We want our children to work anywhere with anybody, and succeed. So what would these kids need to have so that they are at an advantage?
so you would agree I think you will agree to me with this point कि यहाँ का schooling system or education system है, we are trying to mass produce or push out people into
College.
college and there select certain thing and just move out. But there is no pathway let. मतलब पॉइंट ए से पॉइंट भी जाना है हम लोग को तो यह करना है और just push people through it. That's what I did. I did my master's in marketing. I didn't know. Like I started working in corporate. I started with ad agency. Then I realized that corporate wasn't for me. I wanted to travel, so I joined Jet Airways. And people asked me back then, "कि masters करने का Jet Airways में क्यों जा रहा है?" Like I'm like, okay, I want to travel and see things, and I did. It was a good experience. And after the Jet Airways 2018 got shut, I went to ships, Royal Caribbean for 2 years. And when I came back, then pandemic hit. Then I went to Dubai. Then after that, I went to Europe and things like that. So I came in a such a way कि मुझे पता नहीं. I was just going with the flow to survive. But the thing of writing and stand up, which I was good at writing. Like I could my imagine that's good. I don't know where the wood is. But I started writing from a young age. So that kept me going. And if somebody would have recognized this skill of mine in an earlier age and have somehow guided me through that, I think I would have at this point would have at least published a few books or maybe, I would have done in that. Now I'm doing something is like freelancing, trying to experiment those waters, like, swim and see what I can do. So when I do stand up and mine is most of dark humor, but it comes from situational basis when I observe something like that. तो ये नहीं होता था मुझे एक्सपेरिमेंट नहीं करना पड़ा था आई वुड हैव हैड अ सेट path to me when it comes to writing.
This to me brings so many different ideas to my mind. It almost feels like a lot of our students take up courses only because they
जॉब
need,
का गारंटी है.
yes, and only because they want more time to think of what they want to do. When if I tell my dad that I don't know what to do, my dad will say, "Come kar, engineering join kar, fir soch lena."
हाँ.
And after engineering, you still don't know what to do. He'll say, "Come kar, MBA join kar, fir sochna
हाँ.
kya karna hai." And I guess we end up uh, creating a youth which is on standby, which they just don't know what to do. And from what you're saying is, if you had teachers or a schooling system or a learning environment or a mentor or a guide who perhaps identified the spark in you that you have already identified and then nurtured that spark into a raging flame, that I think would be incredible service to somebody, because what's the point of meandering through college and not yet knowing what you want to do?
I think, yeah, a lot of aspects from our schools. I think this is one thing. I think this is, I don't regret that, but I'm still doing what I want to do. Like I'm still writing. That is not gone. But I think I would have been a better curve. In learning curve में थोड़ा आगे रहता था. At what I know of creative writing and when I do write something for a stand-up show that I have for 5 minutes or 15 minutes set, I would have been in a way ahead of my curve. मतलब मेरा knowledge अभी थोड़ा restrain हो गया. Now I'm at least 15 years behind. I would have been 15 years ahead by now. That thing could have, if somebody would have identified, yes, as you said, that would be better.
This is just an absolute testimony and evidence of lifelong learning. This just goes to show that you could spend 7 years in school and still just, by school, I mean college and post graduation, and still come out feeling like you don't know what to do. And finally, when you know what you want to do, you just don't feel like you have the skills or the preparation or the inputs that you needed. How does that make you feel?
I don't know. Phases. There's different phases in life. Now I'm in a phase where I'm 34 years of age. So where I was like 10 years back when I was 24, who I was is a completely different person who I am right now. If you ask me how I feel right now, I would say could have, should have, must have was all very dangerous word. You're still here. You still can, you still will, and you still do. That is how I feel now. It's never too late for me. I'm still doing. I'm not reached a very big like name or something, but that's the goal. It's not just for the fame, but I love to do what I do.
So, what's your passion now?
I would love to write more, come up with some funny contents. I was just having a conversation with a colleague upstairs, and I think I'll use that content for my next stand up. I met I was telling them I met a movie star called as Rahul Roy at the most weird circumstance. I met him in a chai tapri in Tulsi Pipe Road in Mahim. And my colleague asked, like, isn't he a big star? Isn't he doing well? I'm like, if you find him at that tapri, I don't think he's very doing very good in life. But I met him. And so, yeah, I would love to talk to people. Love to have more experiences, write about it, do more stand up. And maybe if I could teach this particular skill to somebody, or I could, if I can point out, hey, kid, you're good at this, maybe you should think about this. That would be a good start.
I love the fact that you're taking what is potentially a disadvantage for you and converting that into an advantage for other students, and that I think is very contributive um, energy that comes out. So tell us a little bit more about stand-up comedy and how do you come up with ideas and how do you write, and is there a formula, is there a magic bullet to get people to chuckle?
Not, I mean, I think everybody has humor. It's just, I started observing humor when I was a kid because it comes from, I didn't have a, I wouldn't say a bad childhood, but it wasn't a great childhood. So I had a lot of losses when I was a kid. And growing up with those losses, for me, it became like a defense mechanism, which I understood later from my therapies that I use humor as a defense mechanism. So for me, humor came through pain and things like that. So I used to joke about losses. So in a way, it was for me, I could deal with those things because I made fun of it. I made fun of myself. I made fun of the things that I lost. I lost a lot of people also. They passed away, and I made fun of that as well. In a way, but it came out in such a way that it was funny. Like other people found it a little bit, they didn't know to cringe or to laugh. Like, it would be an uncomfortable situation and would be a funny situation then. So I dealt with that. So humor came through that. I think reading books, I started picked up reading. I think in school when I was in 8th or 9th, my first book I remember was a brilliant book. It was written by Khalid Hussain. It was called as The Kite Runner. Man, I tell you, reading a book, if anybody is watching this, reading a book is better than watching a movie. Like, because your imagination is running and it's like watching a movie in your head. Like, you kept on reading. Then I never stopped reading. I think that helped me in my writing because then I started writing stuff. Later, I started writing poems because I met with the right people. I would say I'm not a religious person, but a spiritual. I think the higher power ordained for me to have the right people at the right time in creative field. So I started doing music, playing music, writing songs. That widened my prospect. Then interacting with people, they told me that, hey, you know what, you should write this stuff down. Because I used to just have a conversation and people used to just crack up. So this like, you should write this down. Then I started writing things down. That's how my journey began of writing things down and all of that. And I understood then if I remember something, I used to have a book, I used to sit and write in it. Then it became something more, it became journaling. Then I started writing about my own self. And Donia Quadros is a good friend of mine, and she read an article that I wrote. I don't know what happened to her. She called me that evening and like, Anto, I didn't know you had this in you. I'm like, what? I'm like, you can write brilliant. This is a brilliant piece of thing that you wrote, and I love it. And I'm like, I didn't knew. Okay. And when I said, okay, thanks. I'm glad you liked it. I'm like, no, you write brilliant, man. I mean, I didn't know this. Then I started looking into writing more. Then my first show I did when I was, I think, 19 years. There was a stand-up laughter club in Low Parel.
Yeah.
I tried my first stand-up there. Terrifying. Jitters, as I told you. But those jitters were real. But I killed it. And it was an accident that I killed it. Because my first show, I remember, I took the mic like this and I wanted to pull it up.
For people who may not know what killed it means, would you like to just
I nailed it. Basically, it was a good 5-minute set.
Well, I
I
mean, we don't
for an
explain a
amateur.
metaphor with another metaphor.
I'm so sorry.
What does that mean? Does
I
that mean
was
you did well, or does
I
that
did well.
mean
I will. I
okay,
did
okay?
well. So killed it in stand-up terms is that you nailed it. Like you did it good. And if you bombed, means bombed, you mean, अरे क्या तूने bomb करा मतलब you did good. No, that means you had a very
You're
bad
probably the
show.
first flight crew, in-flight crew who uses the word bomb.
You can, and I
I'm
cannot.
sure it's against the law.
Yeah, it is solid against the law.
But
You
you did
cannot.
well, huh? In your first laughter club gig.
Yeah, I did. The first 5 minutes set, it was an accident that I did well. What happened was
You know, I actually think that people who go to laughter clubs go there to laugh, in spite,
it's very
even if there are pathetic stand-up comedians, because they've paid money, they want to laugh, they end up laughing at everything. Is that true, or is it a difficult audience to crack up?
I personally believe that people who come there, right, उनको therapy का
No,
जरूरत है.
no generalizing.
नहीं, उनको therapy का जरूरत है. Imagine if you're booking a ticket for a month ताकि
In advance.
in advance की ये 1 घंटा में हंस सकूं.
Wow.
लेकिन तेरा लाइफ क्या डिप्रेस्ड है ब्रो. तेरा दोस्त नहीं है क्या? That's what I think. But yeah, the whole lineup is there. Some stand up are really bad, but at the end of it, the professional guys get it, so that लोग chairs ना फेंके. Like they do get their money's worth. But it is
Is that a lot of pressure to make 100 people laugh?
Yes, it is. But it is, once I started doing stand up, I understood it is not what you see on YouTube. It's a whole different ball game. It's a process. For me to do, say, a 30-minute of stand up, right? If to give you 30 minutes of content, I have to do like 50 shows. Because in each show, you will have only 30 seconds worth material, which is funny. The rest, 4 minutes would be like not funny. So you'll use that 30 seconds or 45 seconds of material which you did that show. और जब तुम दूसरा show करोगे, you'll use that material somehow combined to this.
I don't get it. I thought stand-up comedy for 30 minutes is just a collection of jokes.
No, it means that person has done like 30 to 40 shows in a beatdown club and tried his art, see what works, what doesn't work. And then after 30 shows, he has formulated another script, which he
Really?
knows.
This
It's
is-
a big process.
It's not enough being funny. You have to be smart also.
It is a lot of things goes through. I think the first, I told you, right? I absolutely nailed the first gig was an accident because मैं जब mic उठा रहा था ना, it didn't come. So वो ऐसा ऊपर हो गया.
The whole thing.
Whole thing. That it just extended like this. तो मतलब हाँ, औकात दिखा दिया ना. So that was a kill. Everybody laughed at that then. There's no stopping after that. Then I think my first joke was Vasai is so far that if you have to go out on a date if somebody's coming from Bandra or Churchgate to meet you, then that's not a travel, it's a commitment. that was my initial joke and everybody loved it. Like Vasai is
Because
like,
it's contextual.
yeah,
It's
it is
real.
real.
It's
Like,
relatable.
हाँ, तो हम लोग को for it's like चर्चगेट जाना is like भाई पिकनिक है भाई, बास्केट सब लेके जाना पड़ेगा, कौन जाता है चर्चगेट हर टाइम पे? For us in
But this joke won't fly in Heathrow.
No, it will not. They actually it does. I got into a train and this girl I was with, she's like, I'm so sorry, it's so crowded. And I'm looking around like, जगह है बैठने को.
Oh.
I'm like, this is not crowded, my friend. You have not seen crowd. And like, you've not been in somebody else's armpit in a rush hour. Like, that is crowd. So you can, like, you can get things. I have a theory of first world problems, second world problems, and third world problems.
Mm.
And I don't give heed or I don't listen to people unless I feel like it's a real problem. Real problem is third world problem. Like 8 घंटा light नहीं है. I saw. First world problem
Like,
is
what is the example of first world problem? Is it like an American talking to a British guy?
No. First world problem
American
I can relate to this. Okay.
Okay.
I can relate to this. For example, can you sleep without the AC? First world problem. Yeah, first world problem. I cannot. Now I'm into it. Like, मेरे को AC नहीं
like,
रहेगा तो नींद नहीं
imagine cracking that joke in Ghana.
आती. Oh, I would say that like
You're
very,
like, what is AC?
there is in that Ghana. I would say there is very slim crowd as the food.
Oh.
That's a dark humor again. So for me, humor comes like this. I'm sorry about the dark humor. I'm like,
But that's okay. But that's interesting as a genre. What is dark humor?
so dark humor is you talk
Like,
about
you can
joke about.
you can
I
explain dark humor in the most dark fashion.
Yeah, I'll try my best to
Don't
be
give
civil.
examples.
So it is basically you talk about difficult things. For example, like life, things that you face in life, real stuff that is actually harmful and hurtful for people, but you put it across in such a way that it becomes funny. It, for example, I'll give you an example for that.
That's the very kind of thing we were saying we should not do. Examples.
Yeah, but it is. I didn't.
Just come closer to the mic.
I just put it across in a very liberal.
Okay,
So
let's do it.
I wrote a, so basically when I'll tell you something. Political is a political joke, not in political, it's political outside. So we can still talk about it. Okay. Uh, so there was a time when in Israel, the people were like, telling Palestinians to move out and things like that. And it was, so nobody was talking about it. So my point of dark humor is I also do this in life, or not all people agree to me to this. I have friends who say कि नहीं यार ये बहुत harsh था, नहीं यार ये बहुत it's hard to swallow kind of pill. But isn't truth really hard to swallow? सच हमेशा कड़वा होता है. And if you can put it across in a joke and tell somebody कि तुम ये कर रहे हो, I think it's a very good way to convey a message to you or to anybody. So when that Palestinian thing was happening, and after a few months after that or a year after that, there was an earthquake in the Middle East, right? It hit Syria, a lot of things. I said, you know what, it hit the UAE or the Middle East world very bad. But out of all these people, Palestinians are the one who was not affected yet. So a friend of mine asked, like, why? Because they didn't have a house that can fall on them. And he looked at me, I'm like, yeah, they were going through adversity and now this hit them. So it was a good way to convey something. So I look at humor in a very different way. I look at situations in a very different way. And I think humor plays a very vital role on how you can convey something to somebody and it to yourself as well. If you can joke about something which has happened to you, which is not a comfortable situation to be in, but if you can joke about it and make fun of it, I think you have come. I look at that. So dark humor is not just when somebody says dark humor, everything goes negative. Nice, dark. It's not for everybody, but it's a genre of humor. Slapstick comedy is not funny. Slapstick funny comedy can be like you hit somebody on the head unexpectedly and that's funny. No, it's not. It's physical harm. At least dark humor is wordplay. It takes a lot of intelligence to write something and to put across.
From what you're saying, I think every joke has a story.
Of course, if you can, every joke, every stand-up comedian ever cracked, it is his life situation he or she has gone through. If you detailed into it, right? Like for example, I follow Aries Spear, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock. The comedian that I look up to is Dave Chappelle. When they joke about the atrocities that the black community had to go through. It's funny to hear, but if you look into it, it says something that this happened. If somebody is, if I have to joke about, I mean, I know I said we would not talk into that, but I lost my mother when I was a kid. I was 8, and the way she went wasn't great. For me to come over that, I didn't find any way because back then बात करना इसके बारे में मना है. You cannot talk to anybody about this, how you feel. So for me, humor was something that was a defense mechanism for me. I kind of come out of it from that. It helped me. But it has its effects. But then I think therapy, I did go to therapy for a couple of times, I still do. And it helped me. I understood that, you know what? And if it can help me, it can help for millions of people. Something is good. But nowadays I find people have brittle ears. They don't. थोड़ा offend हो जाता है. But I think you should, if before you get offended, you should actually, if you don't like it, We can say मुझे नहीं पसंद है ठीक है but you cannot like you made me feel bad and I'm not responsible for your feelings. Yeah? You're responsible for your own triggers. So yeah, that's where it is.
I think I think the last thing one should do is to laugh off a comedian. I think the last thing that one should do is to laugh at a comedian. I think the thing that people should do is to laugh with a comedian. I think comedy can really comedy could be a savior for somebody.
Yeah. I so many I think I don't know if you guys know apna Friends, yeah, the series Friends. Like people grew up watching that. So many people tell me nowadays it's so relatable to us. Like it kind of made me realize it's a creative work. They didn't expect it might help somebody. They just created because they liked it, but it did help someone. It was funny, right? They could relate their lives to it. Their characters in it.
From what you say, I feel comedy can be somebody's life jacket.
Yeah.
And we got to respect it that way. And if and I love what you said. People are developing brittle ears. I think they probably don't have the strength of character to be able to stomach something that is true or something that they think they have no control over. I think that just opened such a different side to a comedian where you look at a comedian and you think he's just a comedian, but he's an artist. He's a living story. He's a survivor. He's an observer. He's a literary, champion. He's a word leader, and writers change the world.
I think
They say good writers change history. Good writers change history.
One of my favorite quotes is from Tukaram.
Sant Tukaram, yeah.
It's like you can see, I mean, if you restrict words, right? Like I can see nowadays what certain words have been taken out of dictionary, which is change history, change facts. Their words can't take them out.
I was at a TED talk a few months ago, and there is one of the talks was a guy who was a language researcher, and he said the way to systematically and permanently eradicate an entire community is to first systematically kill the language that they use. And with that language goes culture. With that language goes stories. With that language goes a future, the legacy, everything goes. And that's why, you may not know, but that's why in the national education policy, the new national education policy that this government has brought in, there's so much emphasis on mother tongue. There's so much emphasis on getting the children love and learn their mother tongue.
Yeah.
So that they can go deeper in their culture. They can respect their heritage. It's okay. And, I might have an impact on people. And
that's true. That's true.
And really get this idea of self identity and self concept really strong. So yeah, there's so much power to language and using language and using comedy to change the world, to talk about things that people don't have the courage, the guts to talk about, to use. Hey, this is an example that I can share. I was reading a poem one day, and then this is random ye yeah you, and I'm like, this is not even English, and my mom told me this is poetic freedom. I'm like, what the hell is that? Well, you can add words to make it rhyme, and in that way, there's comical freedom where you are able to talk about things that people don't have the courage to talk about. You're able to bring to table. You're able to spread awareness of things that people don't want to talk about, or you're able to reduce the intensity and the gravity of something which could be really bad and get that attention, and through that attention change people's thought, actions, and behavior. I think that is powerful.
I mean, spoken word is an art that is, I feel it's like very hush hush. It doesn't get that limelight, but poetry, stand-up comedy, it's not just spoken word. It gets into a lot. You have to learn how to act. Your body language matters a lot. This I learned on stage when I screwed up. uh, it has a lot to it. I mean, uh, it's like water beneath the surface is different than like the surface of water, right? There's a lot to it that's beneath the surface that we don't know about. Um, and nowadays, it's very sad to know that and see as well. It's kind of scary in some ways that stand-up comedy, a lot of people are targeting certain people for freedom of speech. You cannot talk about certain things in public. You can't. But we say that we are a biggest democracy and things like that. Um, Yesterday it happened to me. I said something in a restaurant and my friend's like, "तू ये word नहीं use कर सकता." It's just a word. And it had to do nothing with anybody. But everyone like, hush, hush, hush. And for a person who, uh, I believe in, like, if your heart has to say something, just say it out. People always tell me, मेरे को तेरे कुछ बोलेगा तो offend होगा नहीं. Just tell me what you want to say. I'll process it. If it offends me, I'll let you know. यार वो अच्छा नहीं लगा.
It's almost like people don't trust other people with bad news. They should learn to start trusting people, and they should learn to start having faith in people.
Yeah, थोड़ा हो गया अभी.
Everybody just wants,
Perceptions change.
yeah, everybody just wants harmony. But that was such an awesome conversation with you. For being a funny man, this was quite a serious podcast, and I really appreciate it. And thank you for really getting us to look at stand up comedy as comedians, as content writers, to look at that gift from a very different lens, especially in the world of chat GPT and auto content creation and generative AI. The soul, the spirit, the reason for people to do or say or write will just be absolutely absent when you're using such tools. I think a joke is not just a joke, right?
No, it has a lot of emotion to it. I don't think AI can replicate human soul and emotion to that. If it does, then boss मेरे को दूसरा career ढूंढना है.
Are you happy to teach students in schools all over Mumbai, do a 6 session or a 10 session gig on how to write comedy?
Yeah, I would love to do that. I mean, but as I said, right, it's not, people always find this as negative, but I'm in a learning stage as well. I
Mhm.
would, so I
Have you
teach
come across
one-
any comedian who's not in the learning stage? Good. Okay. So, yeah, you're fairly normal and you're representative of the larger group. So, if there are any teachers or principals who'd love to get Anthony Paulson to his school in Mumbai to teach their children about stand up comedy and how they can use comedy to change and inspire other students, and how they can use comedy to perhaps even build a professional career. Um, what Anthony Paulson did today was to show us that comedy is a form of leadership, and that there is a big space and there is a big need for comedy in our lives. So thank you so much, Anthony, for being with us at the Will Talks podcast. We hope to do more with you. All the best, and God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to you, Will. Thank you for giving the space. Thank you for your team. Uh, Amazing time. I didn't know, out of the blue, but yeah. Thank you so much.